Hi, this is Kim Pinkney, and welcome to my channel. Well, I'm going to go ahead and finish up, or at least get halfway done with this Princess and the Frog coloring. This is my step-by-step on how I would color it. And I'm also going to change up some stuff. Like I'm going to put like some Zentangle designs in the dress. Here's what we're working with here. Let me see if I can bring it up just a smidge. I wanted to zoom in on the face so I can show you more detail as I'm working. And I really liked this cartoon. It was really cute. Here's the dress. And I'm going to throw some Zentangle designs on there. But I think this morning I'll probably just be focusing on the skin part and the hair, and I'll just work my way on down. So on this side, I just felt froggy and felt like, drawing. I hate that it's so tiny. I mean, this is the tip of my crayon, and that is all I can really kind of do. I mean, it's like, how do you get nice and precise when it's that tiny? So I made her bigger on the side. The color I'm using right now is apricot. And what this is going to do is give me like the highlight on her forehead and stuff. All the places where the light will hit it pretty hard, I'm going to go ahead and, well, first off, I'm going to warm up the paper with this hot air gun. Or you can use a hair dryer. And what that does is it makes it easier for the crayons to go on. Now that's the first time I've turned this on today, so it takes a little bit for it to warm up, but it warms up pretty fast. And then after that, I won't need to have it on as long. If you're young, you want to get your parents' permission or some guidance to make sure that you're not going to burn yourself, because these things do get hot, and you just need to stay away from this area right here. As I touch it, and you're not supposed to touch it, but it's still kind of cold, so it's okay. But with that, so right here is just pretty much where her skin is light. And what I like doing is using more than just one color on anything, and it'll boost your colorings to a whole nother level if you try to find a mid-tone, a dark tone, and a light tone. Okay, so this one is my light tone, and I'll show you what it does on this one right here. Alrighty. And so I warmed up the paper right here, and and I never use just one layer. I'm going to be using multiple layers of crayon. And what I'm doing is right here, I'm coloring very lightly. And with this technique, if you're warming up your paper, you should have something underneath, just in case, to protect the other side in case you want to color on that side. So let me open this up. Oh, I don't really care about that, but okay. So I got that on here, and what happens is it kind of gets kind of greasy on the other side, and I don't want it to seep through on your pictures. So just throw something underneath. Now this, the light tone also helps you to get your overall tone. So like if you're looking for a, or looking to do a lighter toned person, you would use this by itself, along with like a lighter brown, basically the tones that you want, and you just keep mixing them together. But this right here, she's going to be a darker toned person. And I'm just using this kind of like a base tone. It gives the other colors something to sit on, and it also gives you a nicer transition from like the lightest color to the darkest color. I also like using white. White also helps you keep the very, very white highlights or very light highlights, like where the light is hitting it the hardest. I throw white down. And again, I'm going to hit this with some heat. Okay, and then I'm going to put this white where I think the light's going to hit it the hardest. Some of the common places are like right above the lips, or right on the lips, like right above that line right there. Wherever you think highlights would fall, like so if the light is hitting it pretty hard, like right here, it'll probably hit it really hard right here and become darker this way. And maybe there might be a cast shadow over here. On the tip of the nose, because you got to think of the nose as being a round ball. You'll always have like where the light will hit it the hardest, and then it'll start to darken as you get away from that light. But also it will lighten up again, but not as white as this. If she's got the side of her nose, we'll give her kind of like a little bridge there. You got a little bit there. Usually the light hits it pretty hard right here. And I'm pretty much coloring it kind of like how I would another portrait. And another thing I like doing is getting like a real person and using their image to help me place these highlights. So if I have a picture of somebody, I would also use them to be a guide as well. Right now I don't have a picture of a human for this character, but I can whip one out. But now I'll just keep going. Okay, so basically that's where my highlights are going to hit, and then I'm going to have it hit kind of like here on the forehead, because it's round, and this is my round ball. So if you think of this as a round ball, this is where it would hit it the hardest. And I'm also taking this white into where I just put that apricot, and it kind of lightens the apricot a bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on the smaller image. And I'll just throw some highlights where I think the light would hit it, because I'm going to have this portrait of her kind of be the light. I'll be the light source. Now I'm putting like a highlight around this side of her face. And what that does is it just kind of gives it a little bit more roundness. Like there's going to be like some highlight or some light on this side of her that lights up this side of her face, makes it kind of dark, and then brings it back to light again right here from maybe two alternate light sources is one way to look at it. Now adding a little bit of white right before your shadow gives this a little bit more of a round feel as well. And this is where her jaw is, so I'm giving that a little bit of a highlight. And these are just like a few common places where you may find a highlight. Now I'm making the white of her eyes a little whiter, and what that does is it kind of brightens the face. But I'm going to also give a little shadow right where I think that it would, it would cast. And that also brings a little roundness to the face and the eyes. All right, so I'm going to warm this up again. And what that basically does is it just allows my crayon to go on a little bit more, It also has some of the flecks, you know, that I had created to sink in a little bit and melt. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, so now what I want to do, I'm going to keep my white out a little bit, okay, is I'm going to throw a little bit more of a shadow into her face. This will be her darker skin tone. Let's see, so I got if you're brown, like when you add brown and it's not brown enough, you can always go darker with a blue or a purple or a mahogany. She's got like a mahogany type skin. So I'm going to use a combination of sepia and mahogany. I'm going to warm up my paper again, and you can see I have already used purple or like a violet on her skin to get it a little darker, and that's where I really want it to be dark. Now you could use black, but black is really absolute. I mean, it just takes over. But it can be done. See, now the brown, wherever I put the purple, is a lot darker. And then I'll show you what it would look like without. Let me just bring a little bit of this down here. I'm going to give her more of a bend to her, her nose. So everywhere where the purple was, will make my sepia a little browner. And if you need to get into the paper, do swirls, like circles, close together. And this is sepia without the purple on it. And you can see the difference between the two tones. And I just go a little bit into the highlight with this sepia, because I kind of want it to be a smooth transition. And then right here, where I want her cheekbones to stand out a little bit more, I'm adding a little bit of sepia. And you can kind of see the difference between sepia on like the light tone versus sepia on the purple. Here's again another part where purple is. And then I'm going to use mahogany. And let me warm this up again. It's good to have a rag nearby to wipe this, because your hands might leave a little bit DNA if you got like greasy fingers. You know, you don't want to eat chicken before you do this, I suppose. Let's see. What did I? Oh, here it is. I tell you, it just blends in with everything. This is a little art brush, and it works the same way. It just wipes away a lot of the dust, and that's one of the things that kind of is a downside about crayons, is that they leave this dust. But you don't see it as much when you have baby oil on it, on your paper initially. But as you start to layer, and they layer on top of each other, they give off that dust. Okay, I've got also a blending stump, and I'm going to use that to blend some of the colors together. It's not necessary, but it helps. It helps to blend. And I can throw this away. Okay, so I'm going to heat this up so that my mahogany will go on a lot smoother and a lot faster. It only needs about a few seconds now that this is warming up. And I would say about maybe 10 seconds. A little bit too long, and then you'll have to wait a little bit for it to get to a point where you can use the crayon. Okay, it's going to go from the sepia to the mahogany, and you see how the mahogany just really came out on this thing. And I'm just going around the inside here of the sepia. Let's see, I don't need so much right there. I'm going over that part, and I'm going to go into the highlight just a bit. I'm also going to put it on her lips. I'm going to probably use a warmer tone on her lips, maybe like an orange, or mixed with this mahogany, or a reddish tone. Okay, and then I'm going into her nose. And I'm coloring very lightly. And if you have a problem with coloring lightly, come back on your crayon a bit and just let it glide across the paper. Now what I want to do before I start to blend is get a lot of crayon on here. So I'm going to be adding more crayon on here. It'll get this really ugly stage right now, where it looks kind of messy and choppy and whatnot like that. That will change. And also, I like how Disney doesn't use the black lines on their characters. They have like a color outline. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to color her outline. And it changes the picture just a bit. It's not as hard. And I'm going to do the same thing with her lips. And usually I see it as a, when they do the outline, it's like a darker version of whatever they're putting into the picture. So like this would be like a darker brown. So I should have outlined it with sepia, but it lightens the face a lot. Okay, so I'm going to go one more time. I'm going to warm it up again. Now these things cool really fast. And then I'm going to go back over it with the apricot again. And I'm also going to go over it again with the sepia. So where it's lightest, I'm going to go into where the, what is this called? Mahogany, where mahogany was. And what I'm basically doing is mixing my tones. Trying to get to the skin tone that I want. Let me throw a little bit more mahogany on here. And then I'm going to use my blending stump here and blend it in. And the crayons do cool down really fast. And then I'm going around the outside of it all with the sepia. And if I find that sepia is a little too reddish for me, I can go over it with a lighter brown or the apricot again and blend them together. And if it's too dark, I can go over it with the white pencil or white crayon and then add my highlight back again. See, the point of it is that I want my colors to seamlessly go together. I don't want you to be able to tell where one ends and the other one begins. So I'm blending over each other. And I'm just kind of working them into each other, and it adds a lot more of the crayon on here. And then when I get ready to get them to blend together with my blending stuff, it'll be a lot smoother, because the more crayon you have on here, the better. And this paper has a tendency of what's the word? Sucking up your crayon. It will eat up the crayon. It will absorb into the paper as you heat it up, and then you'll need to apply more. Okay, now the blending stuff will blend these colors together, but it'll also take a little bit off too. I got to remember to do also what I do to here, I need to do here as well. So I'm going to add that down here to that one. But the one that's more important is the one that's in front of us, because it's bigger, it stands out, and that'll make her look like she's in the background. Her as a full body. Now you can also throw in a whole nother color. So far I've used 4 colors, including the purple. So like 5 colors on her face alone. And you see how it's like bringing out some richness here. Let me wipe off the little smudgy thingy. That way, when the heat hits it, it doesn't just leave me a dot that I can't get rid of. Okay, because of the paper, I left it on for about 20 seconds or so. And now I'm blending them in. And the closer you get to the white, the more it lightens it up. And once it's all completely cooled, once you're done with your picture and you get it to where you want it, put it away for a day and look at it again, and it's like, oh my gosh, it looks amazing. Now also with crayon, if you have a lot of crayon on it, I mean a lot of crayon, like I did one picture where I had a ton of crayon, the crayon will rub off on your other picture. So what I recommend doing, if you don't have any spray fixative, you can use hairspray to work as a fixative. It has to be a certain kind. It can't be hairspray out of one of these type of bottles. It has to be out of like an aerosol bottle. That's if you don't have artistic, what's that called? Spray fixative. Spray fixative will keep your stuff from, it'll keep it from rubbing off on other places where you don't want it to go. There's also called a workable fixative that will, you can spray it on, but then you can keep working with it. You can keep layering colors and things like that on it. Now, right now it's kind of cold and the crayon's not moving like I'd like it to, so I'm going to heat it up again. But before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit more crayon to give myself a little bit more to work with. And I really like how the foreheads come out. I can always add more tones, and just to layer those tones and add more to it. But it's looking really nice, really smooth. So what I'm doing is making crayons not act like crayons. You know, like how crayons have this really rough look to them when you just color it and you don't really do too much to it. They look kind of like this, but I'm getting it to the point where it looks like this. Really nice and smooth. Another trick that you can use to get your colors to blend, if you're not applying heat, is to use baby oil. Just dip one of these in baby oil, and then it'll also get your crayons moving too. That's if you get to a point where it's like nothing's working, it's not doing what I want it to do, try baby oil. Let that get on there. If you've got a heat gun, you can warm that up a bit. You don't want to warm it up too much. It just keep checking to see what times work best for you when it comes to using like the heat gun, or how much baby oil that you need. You really don't need a lot. Just dip the tip, maybe even take a little bit off the tip, and then just get that going. But right now, if you use a lot of the crayon, you don't need to add that much baby oil. Okay, all right. Okay, now this is getting nice and warm. It's not hot, but it's warm, which melts the crayons that are on here right now. And the crayons out here, since they're warm, will help any additional crayons that I throw on here to glide as well. So now I've got this really beautiful tone going on right here on her cheekbone. And you can always go darker with Tiana. She's a little darker in my one Tiana picture here. So I'm going to take, let's see, I want to use mahogany was a little warmer, but I need to go a little bit darker with the brown. So let me see. I'll try sepia one more time. And if sepia doesn't work, then I'll go ahead and use, yeah, this'll work. This is a nice brown. And you see how it's working with what I've already got on here. And this, adding a little bit more to this one little area, just makes this even rounder. And I'm just adding just a little bit of a couple little lines in here to give her jawline a little bit more tone to it. I also don't want such a drastic change between colors, so I'm going to add the apricot. And that gives it a little bit more transition, but I'm also going to add a brown on top of that. Let's see, this brown that I'm going to use is Burnt Sienna. Let me try that. Because from right here to right here, I don't want it to be too peachy. I want it to still be brown. I still want it to look like it's her skin. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of brown on top of that. This one here is actual brown. It's when it starts to dry, or rather cool, and you layer on top of it, it still kind of gets this crusty look to it. So just keep wiping that off, keep it clean. Add your brown. And sometimes it might take more than one crayon color to get to the tones that you want. So take your time and play with your crayons. See if you can get different tones with them. Get the tone that you want. I'm using brown here, and that's going to help me get more towards Tiana's skin tone. And the more colors that you can identify in whatever you're drawing, or coloring rather, you'll be able to mix and get onto your picture, and it just gives it that much more depth. And again, if you need to be lighter, if you need a lighter touch, come back on your crayon. sometimes just going over the entire image with a certain color will help bring all your colors together. So I'm going all over almost everything except for some of the highlights, and even into some of the highlights, because I want her to have an overall tone of brown. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe this away. Okay, wow, it's I got about half an hour before I have to hit the happy trail. So let me see if I can speed this up a bit. I want to use a little bit of mahogany because I want her to be, I want her skin to have like this reddish brown tone. But it'd be a deep dark reddish brown tone. So where I have some of the apricot that I put on, I'm going to just add just a little bit more of this tone on here. But where it's really light, I'm going to leave those alone. Okay, and I'm also going to give it a little bit more shadow underneath her nose. And I'm going to darken this side a little bit. So like the light's coming down this way. Okay. And this here is sepia. This is the darker brown. I'm going to go back over it with the lighter brown. This is just regular brown. And with practice, you'll be able to see more of the tones that you think you need. And you'll be switching crayons, kind of like me. And what it is I'm just basically trying to get to the tone that I want. That's the reason why I keep switching crayons. Okay, I still want that light. Alright, so now her skin looks a little bit richer. I'm going to wipe that off. And then I'm going to warm it up, and then I'm going to get to this kind of smoothness again. The more that you have on here, the more that you can get that smoothness. And I think I want to put just a little bit more on. This one right here is burnt sienna again. And it's a nice compromise between the dark brown and maybe more in between of the colors I've been using so far. So I'm just going around, giving everything just a little bit of a hint of this color. And I'm just trying to get that nice transition from light to dark. And I'll just throw a little bit of that on there. And if I feel like I've gotten a little too dark, or it's gotten a little bit out of hand, I'll just go ahead and add more of my a lighter tone or white. So like I don't want to lose that curve of her nose here, but yet I still need it to be in shadow in some places. Okay. Alright, so once I wipe this away, I'm going to warm up the paper again, and then I'm going to start blending. And if it cools too fast on you, go ahead and just do small areas at a time. And just kind of do swirling motions, and that kind of blends them together too. Now sometimes blending, one color will take over from another color. Like say I wanted this to be a lot browner, I would add a little bit more brown because this light apricot tone kind of took over. So I'm going to add a little bit of brown. And when you add a darker color, it starts to change the bend a bit. So now it looks like this is a little bit more in shadow. I don't want too much because I don't want her to look like she's got this ginormous forehead. Not really. So the more of a transition you have, the more of a smoothness that you'll have. And I mean transition by light to dark. So like if one area is darker, severely darker than another, it'll change the shape of whatever you're putting it on. So like I want this to be like her brow, her eyebrow ridge. This is kind of in shadow, but then it'll come back into like I'll probably give her an eyeshadow of some sort. Now when you find that you have to press hard, heat up the paper. You shouldn't have to press too hard to get these colors to move. You shouldn't have to press too hard to get these colors to move. Now what I usually do is when I blend from where I want the color to be the most dominant. So like if I want it to come, I want the highlight or the warmer, lighter color to be dominant, I would start with that part and blend to the dark. If I want the dark to be a little bit more dominant, I would add a little bit of the dark back to it. And then I would blend from dark to the light. That's if I need to try to get that balance just right. That way I don't make one color a little bit too brighter than another. So now she looks rounder. And then I'm going to work on this side right here. Well, I'm going to warm that up so I can smooth that out a bit. Now if it looks kind of rough to you, it probably is. Heat it up. Keep your fingers away from the nozzle, and then just kind of work it in with little circles. Yeah, this is why I kind of like working with pictures that don't have something on the other side, because it's like you'll start to see it come through the other side, or come through your side. If you start to see that happen, you can always add more color on top of it to try to hide that. It doesn't look like it's appearing so much on the screen, but if you look really carefully, you could probably see it. Jasmine's coming through. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to color Jasmine on the other side. So you gotta, if you do this method, you're gonna have to pick your colors very carefully, pick your pictures very carefully. Because if you don't, you know, you may lose out on coloring the other side. And if that happens, you can always get another piece of paper, and I'll show you a technique on if you want to do the other side. It won't be in the book unless you put it there. Like say I wanted to do this picture. I will take a piece of paper, put baby oil on it, let it dry overnight, or put it under a fan for about an hour. It'll become transparent, and then I can put it over this, and then I can color the picture. It'll just be on a different piece of paper. So I'll do that sometime too, just to give you an alternative, in case you know you like, well, I like both. I like both, but I can't do both if I do this. So never say can't. Okay, all right. So going forward, let me go ahead and warm this up. Now it's okay. You can warm up the same side multiple times. It's not going to hurt anything. It just sets it a little bit more into the paper, which is why sometimes when I warm things up, I throw more color on. And look at that, it's gorgeous. It's like it's very smooth, very pretty. And what it is that we've got enough crayon on here that it goes against the tooth of the paper, and it just sings. It's just beautiful. You'll get to the point where crayon doesn't even look like crayon anymore. Now I want to make this even more vibrant, so I'm going to bring these colors back. by adding the peach, and I'm just going to do the same thing again, and it's just kind of layering it and making it a little bit more vibrant. If I need it to be brighter, I would use like a yellow or a light brown. If I really want this to really stand out like crazy, just something to give you a highlight, even brighter highlight. You could always use white again. Like the white is just really standing out now. You can go into a little bit of that peach. And then again, I'm going to bring a darker tone in here. I'm going to use the sepia to bring her cheekbone back out. And you can do this multiple times if you need to get like a deeper tone, if you want to get more movement of tone. Okay, let's see. I'm also going to darken up her eye here. Now there are times when you will accidentally put or warm up your crayon a little too much, and it just will like look like it's rubbing off again. I had that problem when I was doing my Doctor Strange coloring. I would put crayon down, and when I used my blending stump, it would come back up. And I had heated up the paper too much and the crayon too much, and it just kept rubbing off. It was very, very frustrating, so I had to wait for it to cool enough, add a little bit more on, and then and just go on to a different side, because sometimes you can overwork things. You don't want, but doing this, it's not going to, what's the word, rip your paper or anything like that. As a matter of fact, it strengthens it just a bit. Only because it's like you're adding to it. This crayon adds to it. Now, if you try to do this technique with very little crayon on here, you're not going to get a lot of movement of tone. You're not going to get a lot of smoothness, because the smoothness comes from the crayon rubbing against each other and smoothing out. So there's that thought. Now for her blush, I'm going to see that here it is. It's rubbing off a bit, but it's going to do that on a blending stump. You're going to get color on a blending stump. You'll get a lot of crayon on a blending stump. And when that happens, you can wipe off the blending stump with scratch paper. You don't want to use a pencil sharpener. You're not wearing, this is not a pencil. You don't have to sharpen it. But you can clean it, and it'll last a long time. You can buy a set of pencils that has one of these in it. This is the same thing as buying sandpaper. And this one, I just stuck it on a piece of board, and it's $4 versus whatever it costs to get that whole set to get one of these. This is a sandpaper block, and this is just sandpaper. Unless you have a high-powered stapler, you can't really reuse this. And once it's all gone, it's like it's all gone. So, but sandpaper, I could cut it into, I cut this from an 8.5 by 11 size down to these little squares, and I could just reuse them over and over again. Anyway, art on a budget, right? Okay. Now, there's also a time when if you've got so much crayon on your blending stump, you can warm up the blending stump and also use that kind of like a crayon too. So, there's also that too. Okay, now I was going to do a little bit of blush on her, and then I'm going to smooth out this chin because it looks a little rough. I want to use kind of like an orange, reddish orange, a reddish orange on her cheek. Let's see, reddish orange, where art thou? More red than orange. And you could use whatever colors that you want. I'm going to use, I think I'll choose this one right here. This one here is Wild Strawberry. So I'm going to use a little bit of the wild strawberries, not very orange, but that's okay. And I'm just going to use a little bit where the dark tone is, just a little. You can even use a little bit here. And then I'm going to use the same color on her lips. Now, depending on how shiny you want her lips to be, you can leave another highlight for a lip shine. If you choose to. And then let's see, I'm going to have her dress be green. Let's see. So I could either use like the purple eyeshadow that she has in her picture, or I'm going to use like a pretty green. I've got, let me warm this up a bit. And it's kind of cool to use the opposite of the eye color itself. Now this one here is one of my glitter crayons. So I don't know if you'll be able to see the glitter. I could see it, and it's very subtle. Yeah, this ultimate set is awesome. There we go. So we're using a little bit of that green, but I'm also going to use, let's see, what else do I want to use with this green? Maybe I'll probably use a little bit of the purple. Let me see if I can find a glittery purple. These are cute. Here's a glittery purple. This is Razmik Berry. Okay, and I'm going to use a little bit here. I'm going to let it cool just a bit because it's a little warm on that side. And I'll use a little bit of this Razmik Berry right up here. Alright, I like that Razmik Berry. Okay. Ooh, I've got about 10 minutes, so I'm so sorry. Okay. We'll warm up those lips. And I'm going to use a little bit of brown, just a little to darken it up a bit. Yeah, I think if you want to use the glitter crayons, definitely go for it. But make sure that is the last thing that you do, because if you blend the glitter in, it will it might get covered up by the crayon more than it should. And I'm just blending this purple upwards. And I'll probably use like a little, see if I can find a pink version of metallic crayon. This might be the, no, that's not pink. Let's see. I don't see a pink version. That's okay. How about, we'll use this color here. This one is Scintillance, Glitter Scintillance. Okay, so this is pink. And I'm just going to use a little bit right here. And a little bit on her cheeks. And then I'll put some of it on her lips. Alrighty. Oh, I got it from the side. Alright, okay. And then I'm going to darken her eyebrows a bit. Let's see, I got about 8 minutes. Okay, I'm going to use either black or deep dark purple. So whichever I find first is what I'm going to use. Let's see. I think this is, nope, that's not black. That's purple, so we'll use purple. Okay, I'm going to darken up her eyebrows just a bit. And then I'm going to go over it with a I'm gonna go over it with either a blue or brown. I'll use brown, sepia. So we'll give her like brown eyebrows. See, now it's so tiny, there's no way I'll be able to get that in there. Let's see. Alrighty. Oh, you can see the glitter. There it is. Sweet. And if you can't see it from there, I gotta raise this up. This is just too pretty. And that's from the glitter crayons. Let that sink in a little bit. And then with this green here, I'll probably just fix this a little bit because it looks a little crooked. I'm going to warm it up a bit so I can get more crayon. Oh yeah, I definitely got to use this on the dress. Okay. And maybe just a little bit of this yellow green right here. Pretty. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm running out of time, so I've got only a few more minutes left. Let's see. Now, I was thinking about adding some braids to her, but let me go ahead and smooth out the face here. What I think I'm going to end up doing is, let's do a little bit of schmutz here. Add a little bit more of the light brown. I'm going to add a little bit of light brown and mahogany. Oh, actually, let's see. This is the mahogany. And I'm trying to close up a little bit of that gap right there. Give a little bit of the shadow. That. Okay, brown. Now, if you use a heat gun, you don't want to keep it on continuously for like over 10 minutes. If you do that, it might burn out the motor. Okay, so now what I'm doing is just blending the nose in so you can see the tip of her nose. I'm going to bring out the shadow from her nose a little bit further down to take care of some of this very, very light spots. I'm probably going to use a little bit more purple underneath her nose to make it stand out more. And then I'm going to blend in her cheeks a bit. Yeah, this glitter is really pretty. It's getting all over everything, but it's pretty. All right. Unfortunately, this is as far as I can go today, but I'll definitely do more tomorrow. I'll add maybe some braids to her hair. So kind of like if you can always change the hairstyles up, and I'll show you how to do that. You have a, you know, if you have a marker like this, I mean, I made her fit onto this paper no problem. So you could do the same thing. You just need the right marker to do it. All right. Okay, so I'll catch you guys tomorrow morning or whenever you can. Go ahead and take a peek at this. Eventually, I'm going to see if I can merge all of these tutorials together into one speed video. And then you guys can check it out at your leisure without having to sit here for like an hour and listen to me babble. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And that way you can catch all my videos that come out, especially when I'm just doing the impromptu thing and I'm just jumping on and doing my own thing. If you have any questions at all, you can leave them in the comments. And I have set up a Discord. And on the next video, I'll go ahead and add a link so that if you want to join me in the Discord, you just hit that link and you can join me for that Discord for that day. I haven't figured out how, if you're not a well, we'll figure it out. I'll let you guys know tomorrow and what the next Discord link is. And just leave me a comment. Let me know if you have any questions or if you can't get it and, you know, this technique doesn't work for you. Let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to help you work it through. All right, have a great one and we'll get even further tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.